The moment I walked through the Aldridge estate's heavy oak doors, I felt a presence, an almost palpable stillness, as if the walls themselves had been waiting for me. Silence wasn't empty here. It was layered, heavy with decades of unspoken words, withheld grievances, and the invisible tension that lingers when a family refuses to reconcile. I am Adrian Cole, an estate lawyer by profession, a witness to grief and human frailty by necessity. Over the years, I have read countless wills, meticulous legal documents dictating money, property, and legacy. I have seen fortunes divide families, small inheritances ignite old grudges, and modest estates illuminate deep secrets. Yet nothing had prepared me for what lay inside Harrison Aldridge's final instructions. The study was vast, filled with antique bookshelves, oil paintings of grim ancestors, and heavy furniture that spoke of wealth and permanence. A large desk sat in the center, polished to a reflective sheen with leather chairs arranged around it. The siblings were seated, their posture rigid, hands tense, expressions carefully neutral. I recognized the signs immediately. Each of them was waiting not for instructions, but for confrontation with something far older, fear of truth. I introduced myself. I am Adrian Cole. Your father left specific instructions regarding his estate, including a condition you must fulfill before any inheritance can be distributed. Vivian Aldridge, the eldest at 53, sat upright, shoulders squared, her dark eyes sharp and calculating. Her hair, streaked with gray, was perfectly styled, her clothing crisp. Every movement spoke of control, yet the faint quiver in her jaw betrayed her anxiety. "Instructions?" she asked, voice precise, almost clipped. "Do you mean a will?" "Yes," I replied, setting the folder carefully on the desk. "But there is an additional clause, a condition you must satisfy." Derek Aldridge, 49, shifted uneasily. His frame was slighter, posture slumped, but the tension in his fingers gripping the armrest revealed years of restrained emotion. He had always been quiet, the observer, the sibling who neither sparked nor soothed conflict. But tonight, even he could not hide his unease. Isabel Aldridge, the youngest at 46, remained silent, tapping a nervous rhythm on her chair. Petite, yet fierce in gaze, she radiated restrained anger, a lifetime of smoldering resentment visible only in the tight line of her lips and the restless shifting of her legs. I opened the official will. Typed, methodical, standard legal verbiage, exactly what one expects from a man like Harrison Aldridge. But tucked carefully between the pages was another sheet, handwritten, sealed with red wax. I held it up. Vivian's eyes narrowed. "What is that?" "It appears to be an addition," I said carefully, "a handwritten instruction, but it is not a mere codicil. This is a condition of the inheritance." I broke the wax seal and unfolded the sheet. Harrison's handwriting was jagged, deliberate, each stroke heavy with intention. My voice remained calm as I read aloud. "To my children, no one will inherit until all three of you have forgiven each other in writing. Forgiveness must be honest, free of evasion or excuse. Only then will my estate pass into your hands. You do not yet understand why this is necessary, but the truth lies in a betrayal you have committed, though you think yourselves innocent." Silence fell thick and suffocating. Derek's jaw tightened. "Forgive each other? After 27 years?" "Yes," I said calmly. "That is precisely what your father stipulated." Isabel's voice trembled. "What betrayal? What could we have done that even father finds unforgivable?" I shook my head. "You will need to discover that yourselves. Your father's instructions are clear. The inheritance depends not only on forgiveness, but acknowledgement of the truth." Vivian's lips pressed together in a thin line. "This is absurd. How can forgiveness be a condition? And even if we write something, how do we know it will satisfy him?" I placed the folder before them. "Each of you will write a letter of forgiveness. Only when all three letters are complete will the conditions of the will be fulfilled. This is your father's final instruction." Their eyes flicked to one another. Suspicion, disbelief, and years of pent-up emotion passed silently between them. I watched closely, noting the subtle signs. The tightening of fists, the tremor of a lip, the quick dart of an eye avoiding another. The room itself seemed to wait, suspended in decades of tension, finally reaching its apex. I have seen this before. Long-standing family rifts that seem trivial in origin, but grow into monumental divides over decades. Harrison Aldridge had been a stern father, meticulous in his expectations and unwavering in his judgments. The children's childhood had been a careful balance of instruction, observation, and subtle reprimand. Every mistake was catalogued, every slight remembered. Yet beneath the surface, the Aldridge children loved one another. Or at least they had, until circumstance and misunderstanding eroded that bond. Vivian, the eldest, had always assumed responsibility for her younger siblings. Her attempts to guide them were often met with resistance, particularly from Isabel, whose fiery independence clashed with Vivian's methodical control. Derek, caught between, had learned early to observe rather than act, suppressing his voice in favor of neutrality. But neutrality, I have discovered in my career, is rarely innocent. And so, decades later, here they were, 3 adults, each shaped by old wounds, facing a challenge that would force them to confront not only their father's death, but their own culpability, ignorance, and lingering resentment. I handed each sibling their parchment. Vivian's pen hovered over the page, her precision betraying her struggle to write something honest without appearing weak. Derek's hand shook slightly, the words forming slowly, carefully, as if shaping the letter might also shape his conscience. Isabel's handwriting was sharp, fast, emotional, the pent-up years spilling out onto paper in an unrelenting torrent. As they wrote, I walked around the study, observing. Every gesture, every sigh, every hesitation was a window into their psyche. Vivian paused, biting her lip as she recalled a childhood grievance with Derek. Derek's brow furrowed as he remembered how he had remained silent during an incident involving Isabel. Isabel's eyes moistened as memories of neglect and misunderstanding resurfaced. I noticed a small drawer at the back of Harrison's desk labeled simply, "To Adrian." Curiosity compelled me. Inside, I discovered a collection of letters, photographs, and documents revealing the real reason behind the forgiveness clause. 27 years earlier, an incident had occurred. A misstep during childhood, seemingly trivial at the time, that had profound emotional consequences. No one had acted maliciously, but their ignorance had caused pain to someone they loved. Harrison had never revealed it, yet he had designed this final test to force acknowledgement and reconciliation. Returning to the siblings, I watched their letters evolve. Vivian admitted the resentment she had long suppressed. Derek confessed to cowardice, the fear of confrontation that had allowed misunderstandings to fester. Isabel revealed anger and hurt, isolating herself emotionally for decades. They began reading portions aloud, voices trembling, words breaking through the decades-long wall of silence. Finally, I gathered them and revealed the contents of Harrison's hidden letters. The secret was not a crime or malicious act, but an emotional betrayal none had realized, a careless lie, an overlooked promise, an assumption that snowballed into years of separation and bitterness. Vivian's hands trembled. All this time, I blamed Derek. Derek blamed Isabel. Isabel blamed me. And Father, he watched it all unfold silently. Yes, I said, and he knew that unless you confronted it, the inheritance could not pass. This was his condition. Acknowledgement, honesty, and forgiveness. The siblings' reactions were raw, visceral, shock, grief, guilt, relief, all in an intricate, interwoven tapestry of emotion. I asked them to read their letters aloud. Vivian spoke first, admitting her long-held resentment, apologizing for anger she had let control her. Derek followed, confessing his fear and silence. Isabel, finally allowing herself to be vulnerable, expressed her pain and offered forgiveness. The tension in the room lifted incrementally, as if the very walls were exhaling. Decades of silence began to crumble under the weight of honesty and vulnerability. The letters were collected, officially fulfilling the conditions of Harrison Aldridge's will. The inheritance could now proceed, but more importantly, the siblings had reconciled. The true legacy was not wealth, but restored connection. I left the estate that afternoon. Sunlight spilled across the lawns, bright and forgiving. The house felt lighter, the heavy silence replaced by possibility. Inheritance, I reflected, is rarely about money. It is a test, a moral reckoning, and sometimes an opportunity for redemption. Harrison Aldridge's final act was not about property. It was about conscience, courage, and the courage to forgive. Every will hides a truth. Every truth carries an echo, and some echoes are louder than any fortune. By the time I returned to the Aldridge siblings, the study had shifted in energy. The morning sun poured through the tall windows, casting golden stripes across the polished wood floors and illuminating the subtle dust motes suspended in the air. Vivian set down her pen, her hand trembling slightly. The letter she had labored over sat neatly folded in front of her. Derek slouched in his chair, shoulders sagging as though the simple act of writing had drained a lifetime of restraint. Isabel wiped her eyes for the first time, letting herself be vulnerable, her letter clutched like a lifeline. I placed the envelope containing all 3 letters on the desk before them. "You have done what your father asked," I said softly. "Now comes the moment he designed to change everything, the revelation of the truth that prompted this condition." They exchanged anxious glances. Vivian's lips parted first. "What truth?" "We've fulfilled the requirement. What else could there be?" I took a deep breath. "Your father knew a secret, something none of you realized at the time. The betrayal he referenced was not intentional, but it was significant. Something happened in your youth that created the fractures in your family. He waited for years, hoping you would uncover it yourselves. He never revealed it outright." Derek's hand flew to his mouth, his eyes wide. I don't remember. I can't. I understand," I said. "But the evidence is here. Letters, photographs, documents. Your father prepared them in advance, knowing this day would come." I retrieved the letters from the hidden drawer at the back of the desk. Carefully, I unfolded them, placing them before the siblings. Harrison's handwriting, familiar and deliberate, stared back at them. "When you were children, your actions, though innocent in intent, caused unintended harm. Small lies, oversights, and omissions created a ripple effect that fractured our family. I watched as the resentment built between you, the silence grew, and the love we shared was replaced by suspicion. This inheritance is not about wealth. It is about understanding, acknowledgement, and forgiveness." Isabel's voice was barely audible. "All these years, I thought we were enemies, and father never said a word?" "Yes," I said. "He watched silently, designing this condition to compel honesty, reflection, and reconciliation. He wanted you to face the consequences of your actions without forcing confrontation. Only by confronting it yourselves could the inheritance and peace be achieved." Vivienne slumped forward, hands covering her face. 27 years of blame. On each other. And for what? I feel sick. Derek leaned back, exhaling sharply. I should have spoken sooner. I should have acted differently. I observed them silently, noting every shift in posture, every quiver of a lip, every tear. Decades of grief, misunderstanding, and fear could not vanish instantly, but acknowledgement was the first step toward healing. As they sat, I spoke softly, narrating fragments of the past, drawing out the memories that Harrison had carefully encoded in his will. I reminded Vivian of the summer when Derek had accidentally revealed a secret she had begged him to keep, a moment she had interpreted as betrayal. I reminded Derek of the time he had remained silent when Isabel had been unfairly blamed for an incident he could have clarified, a silence born of fear and indecision. I reminded Isabel of the harsh words she had spoken to Vivian in anger, words that had left wounds still unhealed. Each memory stirred emotions, guilt, shame, regret, and ultimately, understanding. They began to see the pattern Harrison had left them. The fractures were small, cumulative, and entirely human. No one had been cruel with intent, yet the result had been decades of estrangement. You see, I said, the inheritance is secondary. The true legacy your father left was the opportunity to face yourselves, your mistakes, and to forgive. Only by doing so could you inherit not just wealth, but the freedom from resentment that has haunted your family for decades. Vivienne exhaled slowly, looking at her siblings. I forgive you both. For everything. For all the mistakes, the anger, the silence. Derek's voice cracked. And I forgive you, Vivienne and Isabel. For everything I allowed to fester. I am sorry. Isabel's voice was soft but firm. I forgive both of you. I forgive myself too. We were children, and we didn't understand. But I will not let it define us anymore. The room seemed to exhale along with them. The tension, thick and oppressive moments earlier, began to dissipate. Slowly, deliberately, the siblings began reading their letters aloud, phrases halting at first, then gaining confidence. Tears flowed freely. Words trembled, but held truth. I placed the hidden letters and photographs on the desk. There is more, I said gently. Your father documented an event you may have forgotten. It is small, yet profound. The pivot that set decades of estrangement in motion. I revealed the photographs. 3 children in a summer garden, unaware of the consequences their small deception would have. A note explained how a lie, told in innocence, had triggered a chain reaction, causing Harrison to distrust each of you in turn. Misunderstandings, compounded by silence, created the rift that had lasted 27 years. Vivian's voice was barely a whisper. All this time, and it began with something so small? Yes, I said, and he designed this inheritance to correct it, not by force, but by compelling awareness, acknowledgement, and forgiveness. Derek's hands gripped the arms of his chair. I see it now. I finally see it. It wasn't malice, it was a misunderstanding, but I didn't speak. I let it grow. Isabel nodded slowly. I understand, and I forgive. I truly forgive. The siblings sat in silence, absorbing the weight of the revelation. Years of resentment, grief, and misunderstanding had been reduced to clarity, understanding, and emotional honesty. They had not only fulfilled their father's conditions, they had begun to heal. I asked them to read the letters aloud to each other, slowly, deliberately. Vivian's voice trembled but held conviction. Derek faltered initially, then steadied. Isabel's voice rose, strong and honest. Each sentence, each phrase became an affirmation of understanding, reconciliation, and human vulnerability. By the time they finished, the room had transformed. The furniture remained the same. The sun still poured through the windows, but the energy had shifted. Decades of silent resentment had been addressed. A fragile bond, long dormant, was now tentatively restored. The letters were collected, officially documenting the fulfillment of Harrison Aldridge's conditions. Technically, the inheritance could proceed. Emotionally, the family had inherited something far greater: reconciliation. I spoke softly. Harrison Aldridge's final act was not about money. It was about courage, honesty, and the willingness to confront truth. Wealth is temporary. Forgiveness is enduring. Vivian exhaled, tears in her eyes. We finally see each other again. Derek nodded, a small smile forming. I never thought this day would come. And yet, here it is. Isabel allowed herself a faint, genuine smile. We survived our past. Maybe, finally, we can live beyond it. I gathered the documents and left the Aldridge estate. The sun shone brilliantly, warming the gardens and lawns. The house, once oppressive with decades of silence, felt open, alive, and full of potential. As I walked away, I reflected on what I had witnessed. Families are complex, flawed, and often unknowingly cruel to one another. Wills can dictate the transfer of property, but true legacies are carried in moments of honesty, courage, and the ability to forgive. Harrison Aldridge's final act was a reminder that inheritance is never just about wealth. It is a moral challenge, a test of conscience, and sometimes an opportunity for redemption. Every will hides a truth. Every truth carries an echo, and some echoes resonate louder than any fortune. I paused at the edge of the estate. I let the warmth of the sun fill me, and I realized some lessons are never about money. They are about being human.
Thank you for watching this story until the end. If you found it meaningful, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and tap the bell icon so you never miss an update. Your support helps us continue bringing powerful, real stories from around the world.